All right, let's dive into the AI boom that is, let's be honest, completely taking over the world. We're going to peel back the curtain on the economics of it all and ask the one question that really matters. With all this hype, is anyone actually making any money?
I mean, it feels like AI is everywhere, right? The other day, I opened a simple note taking app and boom, a little pop up asks if I want an AI to summarize my grocery list for me. It's in everything we use, completely saturating our digital lives.
And that's really the heart of the issue today. We see the tech, we use the tools, but behind these incredible sky high valuations and all the buzz, is there a real sustainable business model? Is anyone, besides the folks selling the computer chips, actually turning a profit? Now, a lot of people are calling this an AI bubble. And, it feels like one. The valuations are insane, the promises are even bigger. But this time, there's this really fascinating paradox going on. See, unlike past bubbles, like the whole crypto thing, this one is built on something that has obvious mainstream value. You don't need a PhD, you get it. I mean, as the slide says, even my mom uses Chat GPT. And when your mom is using a new technology, you know it's providing some kind of real, tangible value to regular people. So, to really understand the money, first, we've got to understand how the machine works. Let's pull back the curtain and look inside the factory. Because building these powerful AI models is a very specific and, spoiler alert, a very, very expensive process. Okay, so the whole life cycle of one of these big AI models really boils down to two main stages. First, you've got training, which is basically the creation process. And then you have inference, and that's what happens every single time you or I ask it a question. And what's wild is the difference between these two. I mean, it's just night and day. Training is that creation phase. It is astronomically expensive. It's a massive, one-time effort for each new version of the model. But inference, the usage phase, that happens constantly with every single query. It still costs money for sure, but it's just a tiny fraction of the cost of training. And when I say expensive, I mean it. To train one of these models, we're talking about feeding it gigantic data sets. You need over 10,000 specialized computer chips, GPUs, all running full blast 24/7 for more than a month straight. The cost for the hardware, the electricity, the engineers, it's so huge that literally only a handful of companies on the entire planet can afford to do it. So that brings us to the price tag for us, the users. If it costs a king's ransom to build these things, how are companies like OpenAI charging what they do? You have to wonder, does the math actually add up? Yep, we're all familiar with this number, $20 a month. For that, you get a premium pass to some of the most powerful AI tools ever made. On the surface, it seems like a pretty sweet deal, right? But knowing what we now know about the mind-boggling cost of training these models, you gotta ask yourself, does that $20 subscription even come close to covering the true cost of making and running this thing? And the short answer is nope, not even close. That $20 a month, it might cover the day-to-day inference costs of your questions, but it barely makes a dent in that gigantic upfront training cost that has to be paid every time they build a new, smarter version. So if we're not paying the full price, who is? Well, hello, venture capitalists. This is the classic Silicon Valley playbook. We've seen it a million times with companies like Uber or DoorDash. They burn through piles of investor cash to make the service artificially cheap so they can get a ton of users really fast. The game plan is simple. Get everyone hooked, crush the competition, and then slowly start raising prices once we can't live without it. So let's zoom out a bit, because this isn't just about one or two companies. It's a whole ecosystem, a modern-day gold rush where everyone is scrambling to find their fortune. Okay, so at the very top of the food chain, what we call upstream, you've got the shovel makers. You know the old saying, in a gold rush, don't dig for gold, sell shovels. Well, in the AI gold rush, the shovels are the GPUs, and the people making a fortune selling them are companies like NVIDIA and AMD. They make the essential hardware that everybody else needs. Then, in the middle, or midstream, you have the model builders. Think OpenAI, Google, Anthropic. These are the companies taking on that massive financial risk, burning through VC money to train the big foundational models. They're all betting that they can build the best AI and eventually figure out how to make a profit. And finally, you have the downstream players. A huge number of the new AI startups you see are what people call GPT wrappers. They're not actually building their own AI from scratch. Instead, they build a slick app that basically just sends your request to a big model like ChatGPT, gets the answer, and then presents it back to you, usually for a very specific use case. Okay, so now that we've mapped out all the players, let's talk about the numbers. Because this is where you start to see a huge, and I mean huge, disconnect between what these companies are worth on paper and whether they're actually making any money. Just look at this. OpenAI, the foundational model builder, valued at $157 billion. Are they profitable? No. Cursor, a GPT wrapper for coders, valued at $9 billion. Profitable? Nope. Perplexity, an AI search engine, $8 billion. Still not profitable. You see the pattern here. We're in a market where massive value is being assigned based on future hopes, not current reality. And this quote, which is a paraphrase of what OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman said, it just says everything. The single most important thing they do, training the AI that makes their product magical, is the very thing that's stopping them from being profitable. That's the core dilemma for this entire industry right now. Which, of course, leads us to the final, terrifying question. This entire ecosystem is basically floating on a giant ocean of investor money. But that cash isn't infinite. So what happens? What happens to the prices we pay and the services we rely on when that well starts to run dry? And maybe this is the best way to think about it. The dot-com bubble back in the late 90s, it popped. It was spectacular. Tons of companies with crazy valuations went bankrupt. But the internet itself didn't go away. In fact, it became more important than ever. The same will probably be true for AI. The financial frenzy might cool down, but the underlying technology and the massive changes it's bringing, that is absolutely here to stay.